Hey everybody, how is it going? Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking. Hope everybody is having a good weekend as it comes to a conclusion. So I am inking a cover to Horace Hoover, issue number 4. So I've been doing this just on the streams on Sunday. So I have some of it done. It's getting there. I'm going to take it a little slow today. Sometimes I rush through these things because people are in chat, but I definitely need to make sure this part of the page gets done pretty slowly. If you are new to me or the channel, I have a comic book, Horace H. Hoover, New York City's greatest space-time occult detective vacuum. It's sort of an old school occult detective set in the 1920s and 30s. Sort of travels to pocket universes, investigates mysteries, supernatural, paranormal type stuff. Check it out. It's available at horacehoover.com. I need a glove. So I'm using a Winsor Newton number 2. It's a Series 7, which is pretty standard for inking comic books. It's definitely my go-to. Sizes 2 and 3. I kind of go back and forth. This is a 2. So it holds less ink, but it has a pretty nice tip. So issue 4 is sort of the conclusion of an arc that's been going on technically since the first issue, into the second, into the third, and getting wrapped up on the fourth. So we have this like gypsy wagon in the back that has been destroyed. These are usually pretty easy to draw in ink because you don't need to really worry about perspective per se. I mean, you still need to have a basic idea of what you're doing. But you want to make sure that you're not adhering to sort of the structure as is. Meaning, you got to take some wild bends and curves just to show that it's been destroyed. If not, it'll just look like a warped version of the gypsy wagon, or like a shoddily built version, instead of something that was actually blown up or torn down or destroyed some way. So what I usually do is I get the big shapes of the wagon, the front, the sides, and once I like that shape, then I'll go in and do the boards and all the detail. So usually I stream at 3 o'clock, but today I'm streaming late because I was at the Curiosities and Oddities Expo in Pittsburgh, PA. I just found out about it, I think on Friday. I had heard about it before, but I'd never gone to it. And I figured, why not? I always need, interesting artifacts or books, things that I can work into Horace H. Hoover, or just things that I like having around for sort of creepy inspiration. So I figured, why not? I have been in the market for, we'll say, human anatomy reference. A bit more macabre than that, but so I figured I'd check it out, and it was slightly curious, but definitely not odd. It really didn't. I realize that's a subjective definition, but yeah, it wasn't nearly as odd as I thought it would be. There was a lot of similar type stuff there. And if anybody does this type stuff, no offense, but it's a lot of sort of animal bones, and then they take the animal bones and, you know, cobble them together and put it in a frame, a shadow box, or they take the animal bones and embed them in resin, or, you know, something like that. So yeah, it wasn't as odd as I thought it would be. Even the people watching was pretty underwhelming. So yeah, unfortunately, it didn't really live up to its name. So for these large-ish black areas, I leave a little bit of white, because the white basically implies texture and grain of the wood. If I just want like a solid black, which you can do, it's stylistically different. It becomes like a void on the page, just this solid black. So I try not to do that, depending on what it is. John's Long Box. How's it going? Hey, let's give Fabrizio a hand. Why? Because he couldn't find one. I mean, I don't know. If something's called the Curiosities and Oddities Expo, maybe my expectations were a little too high. But I figured at least I should have been able to buy some sort of human anatomy. Oh well. Back to the black market, I guess. My new character is Wallace W. Westinghouse. He will be Pittsburgh's third best occult detective. He could be his nemesis. Although Horace does have a nemesis. But maybe he's a part of the rogues gallery. Yeah, I was just really disappointed in the oddity stuff. I mean, I don't understand who named it. Yeah. So, Your campaign closeout was a lot of fun, John. I saw that you ended up streaming for, was it 4 or 5 hours? Which is crazy, which is awesome. So that was fun jumping on that. Campaign closeouts are always like a little mini celebration, which I think is it's fun. I actually, so the expo is downtown Pittsburgh. And so downtown is probably the best comic book shop called Ides. I used to go to it all the time because I work downtown, but I don't work downtown anymore. So I'm like, well, we're downtown. Might as well hit Ides, before we head home. And it was weird. Ides, so they've always sold records, comics. There was a floor of comics, a floor of records, a floor of CDs and books. So they used to sell all sorts of stuff in a pretty old building in Pittsburgh. So I walked in, and it's a little weird because the comics were mixed in with the music, and then there was, I don't want to call them antiques, but just sort of paraphernalia, like you'd find at like a Goodwill or something. So it was a little shocking. I'd seen some stuff in there before, but I thought they were just moving things around. I don't know if that bodes well for their business, that they have to sort of dip into that kind of stuff. I don't know. They did have dollar bins. I spent a few minutes, and I didn't have time to really go through them because I didn't buy anything at the expo. I was like, well, I hate to go home completely empty-handed. No pun intended. The funny thing is, I'm going to a pretty big flea market next weekend that I've used to go to a very, very long time ago, but I haven't been to in decades at this point. And I kept on thinking, I have a feeling there's going to be more oddities and curiosities at the flea market than there were at this expo. Hey Marcus, how's it going? Thanks for joining. So this brush is really fighting me. And at a certain point, you have to bail on the brush and grab another one. Because I'm gonna lose it pretty soon. Alright, try the next brush. If this one isn't working, I will probably grab a brand new brush out of the drawer. Go to an old shop in a Chinatown, you will have a better chance to get weird stuff there. Yeah, there's literally a place down the street from me that has a bunch of really cool old stuff, which I've been meaning to go back to. How often do you replace your brushes? Hey Ben, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. I only replace them whenever they just become insufferable. It's kind of like a relative where you're like, that's it. One too many times, and then you just cut them off. I'm just kidding. I don't really. It doesn't really seem like the brushes have a particular half-life. Some hold their point better than others, because I'm really meticulous about cleaning my brush really well. So it's just, it's not synthetic, so it's real hair. Sometimes you just get a bad batch. There's no way you can tell. Sometimes those particular hairs really kind of gel together into a nice point, and then sometimes they just won't stay together. This brush is doing a little better. If comics taught me anything, you have to flash a $100 bill at the guy in the front and he will take you to the back room where you can get evil totems. I hadn't even thought about that. First I have to go to the bank and see if they take change to give me a $100 bill. Maybe I can sell some blood. I'm excited about the flea market though. John, I thought that's how you get the good drugs. It also depends on what ink you use. Hey, Easy Comic Reader, how's it going? Yeah, ink definitely affects it. I mean, I use concoctions of different inks sometimes, but this particular bottle of ink I've had for quite some time. And sometimes a brush can kind of come back to life, where you think, it gets put in the splatter pile or just the junk pile, and you use it again, and you're like, you know what, maybe it's not completely dead. Also, I don't know if you can call yourself an Oddities and Curiosity Expo and blare Rob Zombie the entire time. That kind of takes the strangeness out of it. At least for me. I don't want to assume anybody else thinks that Rob Zombie is not odd or curious. I am very much liking Monsieur Spade. It's on Amazon. I'm only a couple episodes in, but it is really right up my alley. I'm really liking it. Clever dialogue, great setting, very cool. No, only Leonard Cohen music will power the oddities. I could see Leonard Cohen for sure. Meg 2, how's it going? Acrylic ink can destroy a brush. Yeah, your brushes, if you're doing like comic book inking, should only be in ink, and that's it. You shouldn't be doing anything else with them. If you're doing whiteouts or splatter or anything like that, just like I said, my non-inking brushes, the ones that get retired, basically get put in the other bin. Do you do other types of drawing and inking other than comics? I do. So I don't want to say comics are new to me, but comic creation is relatively new to me. I used to mainly do sort of like pen and ink illustration, 3D sculpting, watercolor painting, a lot of other different kinds of art. It wasn't until I kind of got the idea for Horace H. Hoover that I decided to sort of devote all of my time to comics. So I've, started to cultivate a particular style just for comics. But yeah, I would say most of my life has been sort of like pen and ink illustration. Pretty detailed stuff. Mostly horror, fantasy, but not always. I went to school for fine arts, so I have plenty of like nude drawings, portraits, things like that. But I do think all of that other stuff helped with comics. So it all kind of feeds into the end product. Same with writing. I've read a lot besides comics. I've drawn a lot besides comics, and it all comes together in the end. Hopefully. My toothbrush is for splatter and stars. Yeah, I'll be honest, I never do splatter. I did splatter relatively recently. I did that Thor drawing. Before that, I don't think I ever did splatter. It's not something I don't know. I'm much more technical, and splatter's so not technical. It's just things can go awry pretty quickly, and you can get splatter where you don't want it. So I like looking at it, but it's not something I utilize very often, if ever. There's zero splatter in Horace H. Hoover, that's for sure. And to get back to your question, Make 2. So after Horace H. Hoover, after the 5-issue miniseries, I am going to start doing a bit of oil painting. That's been something that I've been kind of itching to get back into. I won't be stopping Horace H. Hoover. So I feel like once you get to a certain level of any skill, really, and I'm not saying I've mastered comics or anything like that, but once you get to a point where you feel like you can execute on an idea and the product is what you're sort of intending, that you can kind of take some of that time that you were using to practice and learn that craft and do something else. And then your skills essentially kind of stack. So I'll have the Horace H. Hoover comic book stuff, which will be, essentially I'll maintain that skill and increase to some degree. And then I'll be doing oil painting and other stuff that will be alongside that. And, then maybe I'll be doing some painted Horace H. Hoover covers. I don't know. We'll see. It might be more just sort of traditional fine art stuff, though. I know those two worlds don't really collide very often, but I like all sorts of stuff, so I'm also working on a short story, a prose short story right now, which I'm pretty excited about. I don't do a lot of prose writing, but I do some, and I haven't really released anything, but I think I'm getting close to, I don't know, maybe releasing a book of short stories next year or something like that. I could probably release that on Amazon just as a like on-demand, print-on-demand novel. Book, I should say. And it is, you know, to everyone's surprise, it's weird fiction with a little bit of horror and maybe a little bit of, I'll call it Americana. Just because the setting of some of the stories is very sort of small town, which isn't a huge surprise because I grew up in a small town. Thor, an awesome drawing. Thank you, Easy Comic Reader. Yeah, that was a fun one. I haven't done fan art in a while, but I have a couple ideas that as soon as I get a chance to, I really want to get those on the stream. So anytime I have to do like debris or something that is very loose and almost impressionistic, because you don't really want to draw every little thing, it can get really cluttered pretty quickly and your eye doesn't essentially know where to settle. I always think this is where I envy like pencilers that just hand off their stuff to inkers and then inkers to hand it off to colorists, but I can't do any of that. So I've just got to be really careful about getting too abstract with stuff, because then when I go to color it, it's just going to be a mess. I remember watching this thing about Gene Colan, because I never really saw his original pencils. I always, I'm used to just seeing the inks. But then I remember seeing some pencils of his, and yeah, they looked really difficult to ink, because he really wasn't diligent about, sticking with blacks or whites for his pencils. There was a lot of shading and sometimes gradients. It's very, I can't even imagine getting a page like that. You wouldn't know what to do. I mean, some people obviously did their best interpretation and it looks great, but I'm sure he made a lot of people question their abilities. Graffiti is a huge inspiration for me. I feel comics and graffiti are related in some way. What are your thoughts about graffiti or graffiti artists? I guess it depends on the art. I don't know enough to really talk about it. I mean, I have seen essentially graffiti that looks like really great murals. So I think if there's like structure to it and form, it can have the energy of comics. I could totally see the similarities, especially the colors too. Generally, they're sort of big and bright. I'm not as familiar with it to really talk too much about it, but yeah, I have seen some commissioned stuff on walls they're pretty incredible. I met this one guy at the Baltimore Comic-Con, and he would do essentially graffiti of Marvel characters on street signs. And it turned out really cool. I know it sounds like a sort of a weird mix of stuff, but it ended up looking really cool. It looks like a hard medium too. You know, you have a nice piece of paper, it's easy to handle and control, and you can turn it, and you know, anytime you add an extra level to the medium that's just a little harder to control, you know, it makes the actual creation that much harder. I don't know if I could do a mural. I don't know, I've never tried. I wonder. I had Gene Colan as a teacher at SVA for 3 years. Wow. That is crazy to think about. What was he like? Man. Hey, you're only 5 hours away. Do you want to come over and help clean my basement? I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I might have to workshop that. It depends. When you mean clean your basement, do you mean you put all of your long boxes as dollar bins and I rifle through them? Yes, if that is what you're offering. I found an old Iron Man book that was done by Gene Colan. I only knew his work from darker stuff like Tomb of Dracula. Was shocked to see him doing superhero type stuff. Yeah, I didn't know he did Iron Man. The first thing I think of is Tomb of Dracula and Daredevil, I guess. Unless I'm wrong about that. Gene was a nice guy, but ran class like we were in middle school. Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, it's usually you're either a great teacher or a great artist, or, you know, a combination of the two is pretty difficult to find, I think. So part of me can't imagine Gene Colan being a good teacher just because he's such an amazing artist. It's funny because I think about my art school sometimes and in college, and I argued with my teachers a lot, and not to be a jerk. I don't think I was a jerk when I would argue with them, but I could never just take somebody else's opinion, no matter who it was. You know, if a professor or somebody would show me a piece of artwork that somebody did and they loved it and they thought it was great because X, Y, or Z, and I didn't see it or I disagreed for a specific reason, not arbitrarily, you know, I would say that. And because of that, I feel like I got into probably too many arguments with my professors, which is unfortunate. I probably shouldn't have. I might have been able to learn more if I had just shut up. Gene had long runs on Iron Man, Captain America. Man, I miss those runs. Stuff on Captain America obviously is, you know, I think of Kirby, and then Zach, and then I'm thinking, for me at least, then it was later on, there was a big gap for me, and then it was like that, the Kieran Dwyer stuff, so that would have been, you know, where Cap quits, becomes Nomad. No, that's still Zek, I think. It was after that. It was whenever, Johnny Walker became Cap for a bit. And then his parents got killed, and then he goes nuts. I know I'm a bit younger, but yeah, whenever I'm totally missed the Gene Colan Captain America, that's for sure. Yeah, I used to really like Kieran Dwyer's stuff. I don't know. I'll be completely honest. I don't know if I ever really followed up to see what he did after. I can't think of another title that he really worked on. I don't know about anybody else. Gene was on Cap after Kirby and Steranko. Yeah, that makes sense. He thought of his stories like movies and really laid into light and shadow. He had a big picture morgue and used a lot of reference. Yeah, his interiors are what always stuck out to me, like especially for Tomb of Dracula. Like he would have a living room, and I guess that's the photo reference. But to me, it looked so perfectly set. You know, it didn't feel cobbled together, and it wasn't the impression of a living room, where I feel like a lot of artists, me included, you know, we try to give the sense of a room, and I think this brush is dying on me. Oh man, young hothead Fabrizio would have been fun to meet. Now we have cool jazz Fabrizio. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was a hothead, but I probably got into way more arguments with my professors than I should have. Again, I probably should have listened more, but I mean, some of my professors, I'm not going to lie, they were feeding us a bunch of BS, so. Gene was on Cap. I'm older than John. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, there's definitely, you can tell where people's comics overlap, and then you're like, okay, well, you know, these were my runs of this, and that was a big run for me. You can kind of quickly figure out somebody's rough age based on that. Alright, this brush is going to ruin this drawing, so I'm going to set the brush down. That's 2 failed brushes. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, third brush. Yeah, I also am a big fan of, a proponent, we'll say, of if that brush is not working, bail, and bail soon, because the last thing you want is to spend 6 hours on a page and then, through no fault of your own, at the end messing up a page. I think that's an answer for the brush longevity question. Yeah, I think so. Now, I say that about brushes, just bail on the brush, but I'm also one of those weirdos that has to finish a book if I start it. I have to. It can be the worst book ever written. I have to finish it, which has made for some unhappy time in my life. Because especially as soon as you open a book and you're like, oh man, this one's not going to be good, I still need to finish it. It's terrible. So again, on the bottom here, I could make it solid black, but I won't. I'll definitely leave a little bit of light. Well, Winsor & Newton Series 7s have been inconsistent for years. A lot of artists switch to Raphael, but they're having the same troubles. Yeah, I did the same. So I have Raphaels, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stick to Series 7, and if I get a good one, cool. If I don't, I just got to suck it up and move on. Sucks, because they're not cheap brushes. Easy Comic Reader, same, finish it. Yeah, I know. I have heard other people say, oh, you know, don't torture yourself. You know, put the book down and start something you might like. But this is how I look at it. What if halfway through the book you start liking it? And then you finish it and it turns out to be a great book. And it was just the beginning that was slow. So that's why I hate doing that, even though I really feel like if you're doing a book, and this goes for comics too, it should be engaging or interesting from the beginning at least to get you through it. I mean, if you can't do that, then the chances are pretty low that it's going to all of a sudden turn around in the middle of the book. But so I read Tropic of Cancer. Tropic of Cancer. Many, many, many years ago when I was young and reading weird stuff. And it's one of those books where you just need to be in a particular mindset. If not, it's stream of conscious, sort of, not gibberish, but it's all over the place. And if you try to force the book in your head to be something it's not, you will hate this book. And I did in the beginning. And then I just hit a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, this sounds so weird. I'm just going to let the book be whatever the book is, and I'm going to go along for the ride. And in the end, yeah, I thought it had some merit. So that was one of those scenarios where it was kind of my fault for wanting the book to be something it wasn't, and then getting mad at that when I should have just realized, all right, well, this is what the book is. Just read it and then judge it. But that doesn't happen very often. A lot of times, bad beginnings of books generally mean bad endings. Are you a fan of Little Nemo in Slumberland? Little Nemo in Slumberland? Why does that sound familiar? That's not like the first comic or anything. Am I totally wrong about that? Little Nemo in Slumberland. Or the first comic strip? I don't know. I don't know why that name, it sounds familiar to me, but I can't think of what it is. Comics from like 1906. Okay. I think I've seen something about it, but I've never actually read it. Comedian WW, that art and Nemo is incredible. Yeah, I remember seeing like screenshots or whatever from it. I've never read it though. Maybe I should finally check it out, but I can't remember where I saw something about that. I will say one of the biggest benefits about a brush is debris, or these really organic loose shapes. You can get real thin lines and thick lines quickly, and you can do like a jitter that looks pretty natural, as opposed to a pen. It's just a lot harder. $6.52. All right. So the other thing I was going to do today, decided against it, was the alternate cover of issue 1. I have tried to ink it twice already and failed. Maybe I'll show that. I don't know what the deal is, but I drew the cover. It looked good. I kind of sat on it for a while, which you need to do. Then I printed out the blue line, I started inking it, and then as I'm inking it, I just noticed some things that I couldn't fix in the inks. So I started it again. And I've done this all on stream, so you can go back and look. So I almost finished the second version of it, and I realized there were several things that I just did not like. So I went back into the pencils, I fixed the pencils, and now I'm going to be inking it yet again. This rarely happens. Rarely. The fact that I would ink something twice is pretty rare, let alone 3 times, but if I'm going to redo the cover for issue 1, I really want it to be exactly what I have in my head. So maybe I'll show that. Or I could keep the illusion going that I'm perfect. Yes, I'm sure that's the illusion out there in the world. Alrighty, I think I'm about done. So let's take a look at this. It took 3 brushes to produce this today. 3 brushes. Still got a ways to go, but I'm still in the outlining stage. I did do some blacks, but that's just to keep it a little interesting while I'm inking. But I got to outline Max here. He's sort of in the front. Got to finish this other wing with like the ropes and the chains. Then I'll go in and I'll do all the blacks. And then from there, I'll be doing more texturing, like little line work. So if you look at something like this, which is the cover to issue 3. If you look at something like this, the very small like textural lines. So like this here, that would be like a 3rd tier texture, we'll say, a 3rd tier inking for me. So first I do the outlines, then I do the blacks, and then I'll go in, and this would be like texture for me. So that's the last thing that I do. So hopefully I don't mess it up before then. Alrighty, well, I appreciate everybody popping in. It's sort of a late Sunday evening, so hopefully everybody had a good weekend. Hopefully everybody has a good week. And that's pretty much it. I will talk to everybody online. Have a good night, and thanks again. Bye.